All right, so Bitcoin has officially hit $1 trillion market cap. It at the time of me making this, it's at about 68,000 Canadian. I think it peaked at about 69. It's down a little bit again at the time of me making this. I think that's about 53, 54 US. So yeah, it is officially $1 trillion asset. It's has a market cap larger than a lot of countries. I think it's larger than the entire GDP of like the Netherlands, I think is one. Brazil, I think was another one. So it's really getting up there. But the main point I wanted to make here is very simple, in that lately I've been talking a little bit about it because for many reasons. But the point I wanted to make in this video too is that I think Bitcoin has the potential to revolutionize the way we do money, basically. Um, what do I mean by that? In that, I think I should take a step back here to start. I think one of two things is going to happen, because the way the current monetary and banking system works, it's not sustainable to maintain it. Long term, it's not sustainable. There's no doubt. I have no doubt about that, right? So the way I see it is that one of two things is going to end up happening. Number one, we end up with a system, a more decentralized system, to where Bitcoin probably will be never be the official currency of any country. I don't believe that still. I mean, it's possible, but I don't believe it still. But I do think that I mean, you're already able to buy some things with it, but I think you're increasingly going to be able to buy more and more things with it. For all we know, you'll be able to pay your taxes with it. You'll be able to, I mean, you will be able to. It's only a matter of time until you can use it as collateral to borrow, whether it's, down payment for a car, I mean, down payment for a house, whatever, right? And not to mention too, I mean, you could borrow against it, right? Meaning, if you got to put up $50,000 as your down payment for a house, you could simply transfer them the 50,000. They add the 50,000 to your mortgage, and once you pay it all off, you get your Bitcoin back, right? That's a way of doing it. Like I say, there's many other ways of doing it. So, but getting back to the first point here, either we're going to get in the first situation, meaning Bitcoin's going to go through the roof, right? I've already said within the next year, I think Bitcoin gets into the hundreds of thousands. Within the next 10 years, I think it gets into the millions, maybe even sooner. I could see as soon as maybe the next halving after this one. If not, probably the halving after that one, which I think the next one is I think it's every 4 or 5 years, so it'll be like 2023, 2024, and then the next one will be like the late 2020s. Um, so yeah, or the second situation is we end up with a central bank digital currency that's even worse than the way we currently do it right now. So the way I see it is that you have two scenarios. The first scenario is you put money into Bitcoin. How much is completely up to you. Like I say, nothing obviously investment advice. I'm no professional, but simply giving my opinion. The first scenario, you put money into Bitcoin and it goes up a lot, and you'll be very happy for that. Or the second scenario, like I say, you have the central bank digital currency that's even worse than what we have right now, which means you're going to be screwed anyway. So the way I see it is that if you put money into Bitcoin and it turns out to be a bad investment, well, you're going to be screwed anyway, right? So in my mind, there's not a whole lot of, I mean, there is risk, but compared to the alternative, there's not nearly as much risk as what people think. So that is what I think is very. Those are the two scenarios I see happening. But what is the big point here? In that I think Bitcoin is a once in a lifetime thing. Like I'll give some examples. I think that this is our generation, and being like the young generation, right? The millennials, and the people even younger than the millennials. I forget which one it is. Is it Y or X? I forget. Um, but this is our chance to get, Bay Area real estate like 30, 40 years ago. If you're Canadian, Toronto or Vancouver real estate like 20, 30 years ago, right? This is our chance for that. This is our chance, or anyone who, this is our chance to get, Amazon, 10, 15 years ago. This is our chance to invest in Tesla like 2012, 2013. Um, and again, I want to make that prediction because um, there's going to be a lot of people complaining down the road, I think, about how, oh, it's so unfair, about how you have these people that put like $10,000 into Bitcoin and now that's worth $1 million, right? I just want to say that because I'll be able to point to stuff like this, and not to mention too, it's not people like me. Again, I'm not popular by any means, but there's people like, the Winklevoss twins here that have hundreds of thousands of followers that I believe they maybe even be worth billions. I know they were involved in the early days of Facebook, so they're probably worth at least into the hundreds of millions, if not billions. So these are very prominent individuals that are telling people now, this is your chance to get in. And the one common thing I hear from a lot of people is that, oh, it's gone up so much, I want to wait for it to pull back. But I don't think they understand, because if you look how Bitcoin works, the last two times, the times when Bitcoin spiked massively were right after halvings, right? Um, there was a halving in, I think it was 2012, 2013, and then there's another one in like 2016. I think it was 2012, 2016, 2020. That makes sense, I think. Um, and after both those halvings was when the biggest gains were made. Last time it went from like 1,000 to like 17,000. This time it was at what, eight, roughly 8 to 10,000 after that halving. So again, if you think it's going to go up, let's even say it's going to go up a little less. Let's say 15 times. Well, you're still looking at 150,000 US, right? And I've seen people that say it could get up into the 200s, even the 300s. I've seen estimates. So um, I think the cap is unlimited pretty much. But a lot of people also bring up, oh, well, there's going to be diminishing returns, right? Which I think they're right about. But the thing that they haven't considered is, I think they're right about, but not to the extent that they think. The thing they haven't considered is, number one, the supply of Bitcoin is, sorry, the amount of new Bitcoin is constantly going down. So as long as the demand for Bitcoin stays exactly where it is right now, the price is going to go up in the long run, guaranteed, because the amount of new Bitcoin available is constantly going down, right? Or at least in the long run, it's constantly going down. And eventually it'll get to the point to where the supply is actually going negative, right? Because the amount of Bitcoin available to be mined is cut in half every 4 years. And again, that's also not even including the fact that people lose Bitcoin on a regular basis as well, right? So that's something people need to keep in mind. The other thing people need that they're not really considering that much is that the previous two halvings, there was no, maybe there was a tiny bit last time around, but there was no institutional money in Bitcoin. Now we know that corporations already own billions of dollars, maybe even into the tens of billions of dollars of Bitcoin. So again, the more institutional money that comes in, the more that's going to drive the price up, right? And the other big thing people bring up too, I mean, one of the only concerns about it right now, I believe, is number one, the government can't ban Bitcoin. Anyone who says that doesn't know what they're talking about. That would be the equivalent to the government saying they're going to ban the internet or something like that. You can't do it. The only thing they could do is regulate it, right? They could go to the banks and say, no doing business with any big, crypto exchanges, right? They could try and shut down crypto exchanges, but at the end of the day, they can't ban it. No, if they did that, that would be bearish for Bitcoin. To be fair, that would be bearish, but they can't ban it, right? They can't ban it. And the other thing that people need to understand too is that the more it goes up, the less likely they are to ban it. So this is the thing people don't understand is that the like I said, because the more it goes up, the more individuals have wealth in that. Meaning, let's just say they did ban it, and that meant that Americans or Canadian, like Americans is the easier example. The market cap is $1 trillion, right? A little over that. Let's just say I don't know how much of it is American, but probably let's say 200 billion of that is American, right? 20%. I don't know what the exact number is, but let's just use that. Okay, let's just say Bitcoin goes down 50% because of that. Well, that means $100 billion has been lost, taken out of Americans' pockets, basically, and that would hurt the economy a lot. So this is the thing people don't understand is that The more Bitcoin goes up, the less likely the government is to regulate it, because the more it goes up, the more the economy is dependent upon that going up, right? It's the same thing with the stock market, right? Because if the stock market crashed and stayed down, you would have a Great Depression times 10, right? Because the economy is largely dependent upon consumer spending, and the stock market is largely dependent upon consumer spending, right? They're kind of tied in together, right? So if the stock market crashed, well, that would lead to people spending less, which would lead to a loss of GDP, which would cause which would essentially force the government to either have to default on the debt, or cut like Medicare, Medicaid, or all the free stuff we have in Canada as well, right? And that would be disastrous, right? I think that stuff should be cut, but they would have to cut it a lot more than is realistic, right? So that's the thing people don't understand, is that in my mind, there's no likely scenario. There's no what if. Like, there's no bearish what if scenario with Bitcoin right now that would cause me to be overly worried, right? The only ones that existed were, can you buy anything with it? Which you're already able to buy some things with it. Not to mention, too, you can send it back and forth in a more convenient fashion than e-transfer or whatever the Americans do, right? Um, Not to mention, too, what the other big thing too was that there was no institutional money in it. Now there's institutional money in it. You have the city of Miami who's putting, some of it in their reserves, right? So again, when there's multiple billionaires, when there's multiple big corporations, when there's literal cities that have it, like big cities, the government's not going to panic, right? Because that would hurt those people so much to where they would never get it through, right? They would never get it through. So um, the one concern is most definitely the fiat money people and the fiat money system is going to push back. That is a very fair point. But again, the point is very simple in that it's probably already past the point of no return, right? It probably is. And I think the good thing about it too is that it's gone up so fast that I don't think they've been able to come up with a realistic game plan to combat it, which is, I think, the perfect scenario, right? Which is another reason why I think people should buy, like I said, because the higher it goes, the less likely that especially the first world countries, right? Some of these third world countries, yeah, I could see them regulating it. Some of them already have. But as far as first world countries go, I don't think that they're going to do it, because I don't think it would be realistic. I think it would do more harm than good. And I think they even know that, right? And not to mention, too, um, they may they may very well, like, if you were politicians, like, what is stopping them from saying, what is stopping them from buying up a bunch for themselves, and then passing a law saying, yeah, you guys can pay your taxes in it now, which would cause it to go up. Like, it would go up 10% overnight, like it did when Tesla bought, right? So a lot of people assume that they're just evil villains on one side, but again, who's to stop them from just, them saying, okay, well, regulating it isn't realistic, so why not just enrich ourselves a little bit, on the back of it, right? I think that that's probably what ends up happening, to be quite honest. Which again, at the end of the day, that's shady, but um, it's not as bad as a lot of the other things they do. So anyway, like I said, at the end of the day, I think Bitcoin has the potential, and I think it's more likely than not that it is, again, we will look back on it as being, people that invested in Bay Area real estate, 20, 30, 40 years ago, people that invested in Toronto real estate, 20, 30 years ago, people that bought Tesla like 8, 9 years ago. That is what people who are buying Bitcoin right now will look back on. Like I said, a lot of people think that, oh, it's gone up so much, I want to wait for a pullback. Like I say, it's possible. It wouldn't surprise me. But if I had to bet money, I would bet that those people are never going to get in, or they're going to see it keep going up, and they're going to panic, and they're going to get in, but they're going to get in 10, 20,000 higher than where they originally could have, right? So what I would recommend personally, again, my opinion, is get in sooner rather than later, because I think you're going to be more likely to regret it than you are to wait for a quote unquote pullback. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you could do that as well. I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But like I said, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.